Sanford. Hello, welcome to our LBC chat for August. I'm Annie Phillips with at the Downtown Library, and with me are Amanda Campbell, and she is our systems librarian, and Lady Smith with the Snail on the Wall booksellers, our independent local bookseller. And we get together every month and talk about some of the books we're excited about for the coming month. And always there's so many great titles, and we just we have the difficult job of picking a few. So I'm going to start off and tell you about a few things that I'm looking forward to in the month of August. And we've got some great ones coming up right away. And once my slide pops up, you'll actually be able to see the titles I'm talking about. But I'll get started anyway. The first one is called The Turnout by Megan Abbott. It comes out August 3rd. Megan Abbott's been around for a long time. She writes sort of dark, noirish sort of thrillers, but they can be set in just different, kind of mundane things. And then all of a sudden you realize you're in this like very dark, gritty space. She's done it about gymnastics and just sort of ordinary, quote unquote, situations. And this one is called The Turnout. It's about two sisters and the husband of one of the sisters who were all ballet students, and they've grown up and taken over the ballet school that their mother started. And one is very sweet and teaches the little kids, and the other is sort of more, hard driving and teaches the older students. A suspicious accident happens right before the annual performance of the Nutcracker. And there's already heightened, tensions and competitiveness. And so there's an interloper that comes in, and you can imagine all the things that happen there. So that's definitely one that I'm looking forward to, and it'll be great, I'm sure, just like her others. The second one is The Husbands by Chandler Baker, also comes out August 3rd. I'm excited. I just read her first book, The Whisper Network. And she's in real life. Chandler Baker is an attorney. And so I think she was able in that book to draw on a lot of personal experience. And so The Husbands is also set in Texas, where she's from. And it's kind of if you've ever read the Stepford Wives or seen the movie, it's kind of like Stepford Wives, but the husbands are acting weird and super helpful. Not the husbands aren't helpful, but, as we have dynamics of emotional labor and, the second shift and all that, you kind of have that air of, what's going on here? So, yeah, a high-powered attorney and her husband and family moved to this Dynasty Ranch. I love the name of the neighborhood. And she notices that things are, kind of off and has to sort of figure out what's going on. So I'm excited. I love the idea of the concept of the story.
Let me jump in. I'm not sure your slide is showing.
It's not. I don't know what's going on. So sure. Yeah, I keep waiting for it to show up, and probably once we get to Amanda, it'll show up then. So all sorts of hijinks happening today. The third one is called The King of Infinite Space by Lindsay Faye. This just sounds amazing. It comes out August 10th. I don't know if you want to call it's not quite fantasy. It's kind of on that spectrum we're seeing now with books where it just sort of, a lot is going on. It is called A Lush, Magical, Queer, and Feminist Take on Hamlet in modern day New York City. There's a neuroatypical physicist, Ben Dane, and his best friend Horatio Patel, and his ex-fiancee Leah. They are caught up in the otherworldly events surrounding the death of Ben Dane's father, who was a theater baron. And you kind of, you see the parallels, of course, to Hamlet, but with all these sort of, modern day themes and Leah is drawn into the fold of three florists from New Orleans who teach her the language of flowers. And this just sounds super cool. I'm excited to read it. The next one, Mrs. March by Virginia, I think Fito is her last name, August 10th. She's being called a 21st century Patricia Highsmith. Mrs. March is an Upper East Side housewife, lives a really good life. Her husband is a novelist, and it's a hit. His latest novel is a hit. And Mrs. March is very proud of him and his work. And then one day a shopkeeper says, oh, isn't this, this character's based on you. Isn't she a whore? And Mrs. March just sort of, her world sort of falls apart. And it's, there's psychosis and a killer involved, and it's getting a lot of rave reviews. So I'm super excited about that. And my final pick here is The Last Mona Lisa by Jonathan Sandloff, August 17th. Jumps kind of back and forth from 1911 to modern day. The Mona Lisa is stolen by Vincent Perugia. And this is in 1911, and apparently there's lots of replicas of the Mona Lisa around. And more than one historian has wondered if the painting in the Louvre is a fake. And then in present day, the descendant of Vincent, the thief, is an art professor named Luc Perron, and he has to solve the mystery of what happens. There's art forgery, Interpol is involved. The underbelly of the art world. It sounds like a fresh take on sort of the art forgery historical mystery. So that's what I have. I'm sorry about my frozen, but Amanda's is up. So awesome. I'm going to just hand it over to Amanda.
Hi. And thank you, Annie, for letting me share your space today.
Yes.
All right, we have 5 great picks again this month. The first one is Made in China by Anna Ku. It's a memoir of love and labor. So as a teen, Anna was forced to work in a sweatshop in Queens. It was her family's garment factory. And at home, she was treated like a maid and punished for doing things like doing her homework. Her mom was trying to teach her a lesson that she was Chinese, and so therefore her life was going to be tough. And instead of sitting back and taking it, she actually calls child services on her mom. So jump forward nearly 20 years, she's estranged from her mother, and she's working at a Manhattan startup, and she requests this report from child services just to see, what was in it, and finds out that a lot of key facts didn't really match up with how she remembered it happening. So in her memoir, she's going through what happened to her as a child and her relationship with her mother. And she's actually on the brink of losing her job at the once shiny startup. And so she's just looking deeper into some of her life truths. And I think this pick is going to be great for book clubs. It has endlessly discussable topics, questions about the links between work and self-worth and dignity. So check that one out, coming out on August 3rd. The next one is Sometimes I Trip on How Happy We Could Be by Nicole Perkins. This is an essay collection, and I've been hearing about this one all year because it is actually a Roxane Gay Audacious Book Club pick for November. Yay! So fans of Roxane Gay, fans of Samantha Irby should definitely pick this up. It was also named a most anticipated book of 2021 by BuzzFeed and LitHub. And you may also recognize the author as co-host of the Thirst Aid Kit podcast, which sadly wrapped up last fall, but definitely go back and check out some earlier episodes because they were hilarious. This book examines pop culture's impact on Nicole Perkins' life. She takes readers on a rollicking trip through the last 20 years of music and media and the internet from her perspective as a Southern Black woman. She explores her experience with mental illness and how the TV series Frasier served as a crutch, how her role as a mistress led to certain internet message boards that prepared her for current day social media, and also what it means to figure out desire and sexuality and prince in a world where marriage is the only acceptable goal for women. So if you like a little humor with your message, check this out. I think it's going to be great. That one comes out August 17th. All right, the next one is I Left My Homework in the Hamptons, What I Learned Teaching the Children of the 1% by Blythe Grossberg. This one also comes out August 17th. This is a captivating memoir about tutoring for Manhattan's elite. It reveals how a life of extreme wealth both helps and harms the children of the 1%. So you're welcomed into the inner circle of New York's richest families, where academia is an obsession. Wealth does nothing to soothe status anxiety, and parents will try just about anything to gain a competitive edge and get their kids into a good college. So this book shares stories of the children she tutors that are both funny and shocking. And Grossberg shows us the privileged world of America's wealthiest family and the systems in place that help them stay on top. I think this is going to be really interesting and soapy and fun, and I'm so excited for it. The next one is A Brief History of Motion by Tom Standage. This one comes out August 17th as well. Big day, August 17th. So Standage is the author of History of the World in 6 Classes, which is another great look at history. In this book, you get an eye-opening jaunt through 5,500 years of humans on the go, revealing how transportation inevitably shaped civilization. So he goes all the way back around 3,500 BC, starting with the wheel. He zips through eras of horsepower, trains, bicycles, revealing how each mode of transit embedded itself in the world we live in, from the geography of our cities to the experience of time to our notions of gender. So then he delves into the history of the automobile's development. He explores how the social resistance to cars and the upheaval that their widespread adoption required. And then he goes all the way through today, after the explosive growth of ride sharing and years of predictions about self-driving cars. He talks about the social transformations spurred by coronavirus and overshadowed by climate change, how they create an opportunity to re-examine our relationship with cars. So if you want an overview of transportation from the beginning to now and all of the social issues around that, take a look at this book. The last one I have is called Seeing Ghosts by Chow. This is another one that I've been hearing about all year, so I'm so excited to finally get my hands on it. This one comes out August 24th. This is for readers of Helen MacDonald and Jesmyn Ward. It's an intimate and haunting portrait of grief and the search for meaning as told through the prism of 3 generations of a Chinese-American family. So the author, Chow, has always been unusually fixated on death. She worried constantly about her parents dying, especially her mother. Her mother was really vivacious and mischievous. So she had this recurring joke that kind of haunted Chow. She always joked that, made a morbid joke that when she died, she'd like to be stuffed and displayed in Kat's future apartment to always watch over her. Oh, goodness. So then, unfortunately, her mother dies unexpectedly from cancer. And so this book takes her sisters and their father. They're plunged into just a debilitating and lonely grief. And so Kat is weaving a story together of the fallout of that grief that follows her family as they immigrate from China and Hong Kong to Cuba and America. This book, Seeing Ghosts, asks what it means to reclaim and tell your family's story. Is writing an exorcism, or is it its own form of preservation? So interesting ideas to discuss here. Powerful, moving story, and with that joke, you got to get a bit of humor in here. So really excited about all these great books coming out in August.
Wow, thank you, Amanda. That was a great story. And I agree. To get that grief out, to deal with it, I think writing just and telling funny stories makes such a difference. So can't wait for these. All right, so next we are going to Lady, and I've got your slide up.
Okay, well, it's good to be here today talking about August books. And unbelievably, we did not overlap when we came up with our list of 5 picks. We all had different ones, which shows that there's a lot to look forward to in August. Most of mine actually released August 3rd, so you could start reading right away, which is exciting news. Okay, so I'll start with the first one, Damnation Spring by Ash Davidson. This is a debut novel, so you have not heard of Ash Davidson before, but you are going to hear, I think, a lot of her because this is such a rich novel that is already just getting a lot of critical praise. It is the story of a logging community, and it's told from the perspectives of a man, his wife, and their young son. So you get those, you kind of go through each of those perspectives. The characters in this are so real, and you really just feel they're sort of hiding some things from each other because they're going through their own things. Rich has secretly bought a plot of land without telling his wife because he's really just trying to provide for his young son and get ahead. He's been working as a logger for years. Meanwhile, his wife is struggling with miscarriages and just wants a baby, another baby so much. And then they're taking care of their young son who's learning the logging industry, which is very dangerous. So every day, that Rich goes to work and it's a dangerous thing. And then there's the whole environmental aspect of it. And so Colleen, the wife, starts to wonder if her miscarriages are tied to what's happening in this industry in their community. So this is a great novel about the environment, but also about marriage and about, work and dreams and aspirations and all those things. So it's just very rich, and you'll feel like you know these characters, a chapter in. So I love that one. The next one is just a small independently published book that I read recently and loved, The Union of Synchronized Swimmers. This is by a Finnish author, Christina Sandu, and has just recently been translated into English. I feel like it's here in perfect timing for the Olympics because there is a story. First of all, it's not really a novel. It's more like a set of independent stories with this common thread running through it that these 6 women were synchronized swimmers in an Eastern Bloc country behind the Iron Curtain. And it's very it's a kind of an elusive, kind of atmospheric novel. It's not straightforward. It's more just trying to learn their story by reading what's happened to them later, because what they do is they learn how to do synchronized swimming in the river, and then they escape from the block. And so they end up in different places. One is in Rome, one is in California. And so we're reading about their lives after their escape, but we're also taken back to how they developed as swimmers and as independent women with, a goal to get out and discover life. And it's not always a happy ending for them, but it's really interesting. Just love that. It's a little thin book that you can read quickly, but you'll get a lot out of it, I think. Okay, the next book, The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams. This is a perfect book for those of us that love books about books. It is set in London, and it has several main characters, again, some different perspectives. You've got a widower named Mukesh, who is an Indian man who's lost his wife, and she loved to read. And so he's trying to connect with their granddaughter, and he goes to the library to try to find books for her. And he ends up getting a reading list from a young teenager that works at the library who found the list and isn't much of a reader herself. But they each start to go work their way through the reading list, which starts with To Kill a Mockingbird. It's also got Life of Pi, The Time Traveler's Wife. You'll find a lot of, books that you've read as part of this list. And as they work their way through it, they discover a love of reading, and they discover more about how to work through the painful parts of their life through books. Because Alicia, the teenager, is also struggling with things at home. And so then she connects to this widower, Mukesh, through books. So it's just a really heartwarming kind of read that I think people will really relate to. Okay, next we go to a book that I have long been looking forward to, Lightning Strike by William Kent Krueger. So he is the author of This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace. And if there is one book that over the past few years as a bookseller I have recommended over and over, it is This Tender Land. I have yet to find anybody that didn't say they loved it. It is, whether you like mysteries, whether you like human stories, sagas, epics, it's got all of that. And this new one does too. He's returning to his Connor O'Cork series, but so this is considered a prequel, but it's really a standalone. You can read any of Krueger's books by themselves. This one, like those other ones, has a mystery. It also has a lot of theological threads running through it. It's set in a small town, so you really get to know those characters. It's a young boy and his father, and the young boy is following in its father's footsteps by trying to search for some crumbs and some clues to solve a crime. And along the way, he learns some much bigger truths, and there are those same theological themes that you found in the other books. These are just always, journey stories. He writes, they're sort of quests, his books. So I'm just so looking forward to this, and I think everyone's going to love it. So this is a big one. That's a big one because he doesn't publish a lot of books. So we get excited when he comes out with one. And then at the end, we'll shift gears entirely to My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror book. So if you're okay with a little bit of gore and a little bit of horror, definitely give this one a try. This is not, Stephen Graham Jones does write horror, but not just your stereotypical. He's writing from an indigenous perspective. And his recent one was The Only Good Indians. And so there's so much more to this story than just, slasher, but there is some of that. So the main character at the heart of this is a teenage girl who is half Indian, and she is obsessed with horror flicks. And that's kind of how she relates to the world. She does not have a lot of friends in the community. And so murders start happening in her town, and she starts using her, love of horror to try to figure out what's happening. And so it's much more than just, like I said, just, the typical horror things. You're also dealing with a girl who's trying to find her place in the world. You're dealing with gentrification. You're dealing with issues that, Indigenous people have faced. So you're going to learn a lot too. And it's a very cultural, timely kind of book. So I recommend any of Stephen Graham Jones' books for that reason. If you can take a little horror, make your heart pound a little bit. So.
Well, thank you, lady. And I personally love horror, and I think horror's just, the reasons why I think we like it are because it kind of helps you, it's cathartic. And also, what are the things that drive, our fears? And it's all around us, and sort of, and I'm excited. I've heard so many good things about Stephen Graham Jones. So I'm excited to try all of his stuff. And thanks to Amanda, I actually have a copy of an arc of Damnation Spring. So I'm very excited about that and all of these. I've heard wonderful things about William Kent Krueger. And so thank you for these picks. And I know we wanted to mention too, a wonderful local author of ours who has done real good. Do you want to tell us about Bob Bailey and what's happening?
Someone else that many of you have heard of, Robert Bailey, who writes legal thrillers. He's coming out with a new book August 3rd as well, called The Wrong Side. This is in his new series, and it's the second book in the new series. And these are set around Pulaski, Tennessee. He always really sets his books in areas that we're familiar with. So we're excited about that. We're going to have an event at Fractal Brewing Company on Friday, August 6th. Don't quote me on that. So visit my website, snailonthewall.com, and you'll find out it's just a free event. Come by. He's going to sign books, and these are great paperbacks, great reads for anyone, really, if you like a thriller, a little detective, kind of a detective stories.
Oh, and he's super popular, especially in Huntsville. His books are in high demand. So, and he's a super nice guy too. So, thank you for sharing that information. And finally, we always end with our Librarian Book Club pick for the month. And so for August, it is So We Meet Again by Suzanne Park. And this just sounds really cute. A young investment banker named Jess Kim is passed over for a promotion, laid off in a virtual meeting, and then overhears some not very some kind of discriminatory stuff about being a woman and being Asian. So she moves back home to Tennessee with her domineering Korean mom, and she gets set up. Her mom tries to set her up with a pastor's son, who is a lawyer by day and a video game streamer at night. And he has blossomed. He's not the awkward preacher's kid. So you can kind of imagine things happen from there. And he helps her out. She starts a cooking channel and becomes successful. A client is interested in buying her out. It turns out it's the investment bank that ditched her. And Daniel, the preacher's son, is actually the counsel for the firm. So awkwardness ensues, but I think it'll have a happy ending. And I think it'll be a fun read, and already been getting requests for us to buy it. So it's on order for the library, and I know you can buy it from Lady too. So thanks for joining us to hear about all these awesome books, and we will be back for September and a whole new crop of difficult to winnow down books. So join us then, and thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.